Marcus Johnson stood at the gleaming glass doors of Elite Luxe Boutique, his heart beating fast with excitement. The store's golden logo shone in the bright Manhattan sunlight, and through the spotless windows, he could see the beautiful displays of designer bags, shoes, and accessories. Taking a deep breath, he touched the envelope in his jacket pocket one more time, making sure his $500 was still there, money he'd earned over 3 months of tutoring younger kids in math and science after school. A group of wealthy-looking women walked out, shopping bags dangling from their arms, and Marcus politely held the door for them. 2 of them smiled and thanked him, while another gave him a strange look, clutching her purse tighter. Marcus was used to these reactions, but today nothing could dampen his spirits. This was a special day. His mother's birthday was coming up, and he wanted to surprise her with something extraordinary. His mom, a hard-working nurse who often pulled double shifts at the local hospital, had always admired the beautiful bags in Elite Luxe's window displays. Every time they passed by, she would pause for a moment, looking at them with longing before saying, "Maybe someday." Marcus had watched her work tirelessly, caring for others while rarely treating herself to anything special. That's why he had spent countless afternoons helping struggling students with their homework, saving every dollar he earned. As Marcus finally stepped into the store, the cool air conditioning hit his face. The subtle scent of expensive leather and perfume filled his nostrils. Classical music played softly in the background, and the lights made everything sparkle. He adjusted his neat blue polo shirt, his favorite one, specially chosen for this important shopping trip, and walked confidently toward the handbag section. At 14, he was already tall for his age, and his recent academic awards had given him a quiet self-assurance. The handbags were even more beautiful up close. Marcus had done his research online, knowing exactly which styles his mother had admired. He spotted a beautiful black leather bag with gold hardware that looked perfect. Elegant enough for special occasions, but practical enough for daily use. The price tag read $495, just within his budget. He smiled, imagining the look on his mother's face when she would open her gift. A few other customers browsed nearby, some giving him curious glances. Marcus was often the only black person in high-end stores like this, but he didn't let that bother him. His mother had always taught him to hold his head high and remember that his money was as good as anyone else's. He reached out to carefully touch the bag he'd selected, admiring the smooth leather and perfect stitching. Just then, he noticed movement in his peripheral vision. A man in an expensive suit was walking purposefully toward him, his face set in a stern expression. The store manager's badge gleamed on his chest, catching the light as he approached. What Marcus didn't know was that this simple shopping trip was about to turn into something much more significant than he could have imagined. Marcus stood straighter, preparing to ask about the bag, completely unaware that in the next few minutes, his simple act of trying to buy a birthday gift would spark a chain of events that would change not just his day, but the lives of many others. Behind him, a well-dressed Asian woman pretending to look at scarves watched the scene unfold with keen interest, her true identity as the regional director still unknown to everyone in the store. "Would you like me to continue with the expanded version of Part 2? I can maintain the same level of detail and engagement while moving the story forward." The store manager, Richard Conway, moved swiftly between the displays, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. His face wore the practiced smile of someone who had spent years in luxury retail, but his eyes told a different story as they fixed on Marcus. The kind of look Marcus had seen before, a mix of suspicion and judgment that had nothing to do with what he was doing and everything to do with how he looked. "Can I help you?" Conway's voice was sharp, carrying across the store loud enough to make other customers turn their heads. He positioned himself uncomfortably close to Marcus, using his height to tower over the teenager. The strong scent of his expensive cologne couldn't mask the unmistakable smell of prejudice. Marcus, still holding the black leather bag, smiled politely. "Yes, sir. I'm interested in buying this bag for my mother's birthday." He spoke clearly and confidently, just as he did when presenting in front of his honors class. His hand instinctively moved toward his jacket pocket, where the envelope of money rested securely. Conway's eyebrows rose so high they nearly touched his perfectly styled hair. "This bag," he said slowly, as if speaking to someone who couldn't understand English, "is $495. He emphasized each number separately, his tone dripping with disbelief. "I know, sir," Marcus replied, maintaining his composure. "I've been saving up for it." He pulled out the envelope, hoping that showing he could actually afford the bag would change the manager's attitude. "I have $500 right here." Instead of reassuring Conway, the sight of the envelope seemed to make things worse. The manager's face reddened, and he took a step closer to Marcus. "Where did you get that money?" he demanded, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I find it hard to believe that someone like you could afford to shop here legitimately." The other customers had stopped browsing now, creating an uncomfortable circle around the scene. Some looked embarrassed, others curious, and a few seemed concerned. Among them, the well-dressed Asian woman who'd been examining scarves earlier moved slightly closer, her expression unreadable as she watched the situation unfold. Marcus felt his ears growing hot, but he kept his voice steady. "I earned it, sir. I've been tutoring other students after school. I can show you my student ID and my honor roll certificate if you'd like." He reached for his wallet, but Conway cut him off with a dismissive wave. "That won't be necessary," Conway snapped, reaching for the bag in Marcus's hands. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We reserve the right to refuse service, and we've had problems with certain people trying to pass fake money or use stolen cards." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd been warned about situations like this by his parents, but experiencing it firsthand felt like having ice water poured down his back. His hands trembled slightly, but years of dealing with prejudice had taught him to stay calm in these moments. Just then, Conway motioned to two security guards who had materialized at the ends of the aisle. They began moving toward Marcus, their faces stern and professional, but their body language clearly threatening. The other customers shifted uncomfortably, some turning away, others pulling out their phones, and a few watching with obvious distress at what was unfolding. Marcus, his heart pounding but his mind clear, made a decision. He slowly reached for his phone, knowing that what happened next would need to be documented. The situation was about to take a turn that neither he nor the smug store manager could have anticipated. With trembling fingers but steady resolve, Marcus pressed the record button on his phone, holding it up just as the security guards reached him. The bright store lights caught the tears threatening to spill from his eyes, but his voice remained remarkably composed. "I'm recording this because I want people to see what's happening to me just for trying to buy my mom a birthday present." The first security guard, a tall man with graying hair named Frank, hesitated for a moment, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. The second guard, younger and more aggressive, reached for Marcus's arm, but Frank held up a hand to stop him. Conway, however, wasn't deterred by the camera. "Stop recording immediately." Conway's face turned an even deeper shade of red. "This is private property. You have no right to film here." His voice echoed through the store, drawing even more attention. Other customers had their phones out now too, sensing they were witnessing something significant. Marcus stood his ground, speaking clearly into his phone's camera. "I came in here with money I earned tutoring kids in math. I found a bag for my mom, who works double shifts as a nurse saving people's lives. And now I'm being thrown out because—" His voice finally cracked, but he pushed through. "Because of what?" "Because I don't look like your usual customers." A middle-aged white woman in expensive jewelry stepped forward. "This is disgraceful," she said, but surprisingly, she was looking at Conway, not Marcus. "I've been shopping here for 10 years, and I've never seen such appalling behavior." Several other customers nodded in agreement, some muttering under their breath. Conway's professional mask began to slip completely. "You don't understand," he sputtered, looking around for support. We have protocols, security concerns. But his words sounded hollow even to his own ears. The young security guard shifted uncomfortably, no longer looking so eager to remove Marcus. A small crowd had gathered now, and phones were recording from every angle. An elderly gentleman in a tailored suit spoke up next. "Young man, how much do you need for the bag? I'll buy it for you right now." But Marcus shook his head, dignity intact despite the humiliation. "Thank you, sir, but I earned my own money. I just want to be treated like any other customer." Marcus's words came out clear and strong, making several onlookers nod in approval. The video counter on his phone kept ticking up, documenting every second of this moment. Through it all, the well-dressed Asian woman continued watching, her expression changing from concern to determination. She had seen enough. As Conway began insisting that security remove Marcus for causing a disturbance, she pulled something from her designer handbag. The air in the store felt electric with tension. Some customers were openly arguing with Conway now, while others were making phone calls, presumably to corporate headquarters. Marcus stood in the middle of it all, still recording, still holding onto his envelope of hard-earned money, refusing to be bullied out, but also refusing to lose his composure. Just as Frank, the older security guard, reluctantly stepped forward to escort Marcus out, the Asian woman moved with purpose toward the group. Her heels clicked decisively on the marble floor, and the crowd parted instinctively, sensing something important was about to happen. She held what looked like an ID badge in her hand, and her face wore an expression that made Conway's confident demeanor falter for the first time. The entire store seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus's phone kept recording, capturing what was about to become a moment of justice that none of them would soon forget. Sarah Chen, the regional director, strode forward with the authority of someone who had spent 15 years climbing the corporate ladder of luxury retail. She held up her ID badge, its gold lettering catching the light. "That's quite enough, Mr. Conway," she announced, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife through butter. Conway's face, which had been red with anger moments before, suddenly turned pale as paper. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water as he recognized the woman who had been quietly observing the entire scene. The security guards immediately stepped back, recognizing the shift in power. "Ms. Chen, I didn't know you were," Conway stammered, his previously commanding voice now reduced to a nervous whisper. The other customers watched in fascination as the scene unfolded before them, phones still recording every moment. Sarah turned to Marcus, her expression softening. "Young man, would you mind sharing with me what happened here today? And please, keep recording. This is something our entire company needs to see." She gestured to a comfortable seating area where customers usually tried on shoes. Marcus, still maintaining his composure, walked with Sarah to the chairs while the crowd watched. He explained everything, his months of tutoring, saving money for his mother's birthday, and how he had been treated from the moment he walked in. As he spoke, Sarah's expression grew increasingly serious. Other customers began stepping forward, one by one, offering their own accounts. The elderly gentleman in the tailored suit described how impressed he'd been with Marcus's dignity under pressure. The middle-aged woman with expensive jewelry detailed Conway's aggressive behavior. Even Frank, the older security guard, stepped forward to admit he'd felt uncomfortable with the entire situation. Conway stood frozen in place, watching his career crumble before his eyes. Sweat began to show through his expensive shirt, and his perfectly styled hair was becoming disheveled as he nervously ran his hands through it. "Mr. Conway," Sarah finally said, turning to face him. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of authority that made everyone in the store lean in to listen. "I've been conducting anonymous store inspections across our locations for the past month. We've had reports of discriminatory behavior, but I needed to see it firsthand. I never expected to witness something this blatant." The store had become so quiet you could hear the soft background music playing overhead. Every eye was on Sarah as she continued. "Today, I watched you profile and harass a young customer who showed nothing but politeness and dignity. You accused him of theft without evidence, questioned the legitimacy of his money without cause, and attempted to have him removed from our store for no reason other than your own prejudice. Marcus sat straight in his chair, his phone still recording, as Sarah reached into her designer bag and pulled out a business card. She handed it to him, saying, "I apologize on behalf of Elite Luxe. What happened here today is completely against everything our company stands for. And Mr. Conway." She turned back to the manager, who seemed to shrink under her gaze. "Consider yourself suspended, effective immediately. Please hand over your store keys to security." The tension in the store began to shift into something else, a sense of justice being served, of wrongs being righted. But Sarah wasn't finished yet. She had plans that would turn this horrible experience into something much more meaningful, not just for Marcus, but for the entire company. Would you like me to continue with Part 5? I'll maintain this level of detail and engagement as we see how the situation continues to unfold. Sarah turned back to Marcus, her expression warm and professional. "Now let's talk about that bag you were interested in for your mother." She gestured to the black leather handbag that had started it all, still sitting on the display shelf where Marcus had first picked it up. "Would you mind telling me about your mother?" Marcus's eyes lit up, and for the first time since the incident began, a genuine smile spread across his face. "She's a nurse at Memorial Hospital," he said proudly. "She works double shifts, sometimes even triple shifts during emergencies. She's always taking care of everyone else, but never treats herself to anything special." As Marcus spoke, Sarah walked over and picked up the bag he had chosen. She examined it carefully, nodding in approval. "You have excellent taste. This is one of our best sellers, and the quality is exceptional. Perfect for someone who works long hours and needs something both elegant and durable." The other customers, who had been watching the scene unfold, remained gathered around, but now their expressions had changed from concern to interest. The middle-aged woman with the expensive jewelry wiped a tear from her eye as she listened to Marcus talk about his mother. "Tell me about how you earned the money," Sarah prompted, genuinely curious. She sat down next to Marcus, the bag placed carefully between them. Marcus straightened up, his voice growing confident again. "I've been tutoring younger kids in math and science after school. 3 days a week, sometimes on weekends too. I charge $15 per hour, and I've been saving every dollar for 3 months." He patted the envelope in his pocket. Some kids were really struggling with algebra, but now they're getting B's and even A's. Sarah nodded, clearly impressed. Then she made a decision. "Marcus, not only would I like to sell you this bag at a 30% discount, but I'd like to offer you something else." She pulled out another business card, this one different from the first. "We have a corporate internship program for high school students interested in business and retail management. Would you be interested in learning how our company works from the inside?" The store had grown so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Conway, still standing off to the side with security, looked like he might faint. Frank, the older security guard, was smiling broadly. "Really?" Marcus asked, his eyes wide with surprise. "You'd want me to intern here?" "Absolutely," Sarah replied firmly. "Your poise under pressure, your dedication to earning honest money, and your excellent taste in merchandise. These are exactly the qualities we look for. Plus," she added with a meaningful look around the store, "I think having someone like you on our team could help prevent situations like this from happening again." She stood up and addressed the entire store. "Today has shown us that we have work to do. Real work. But it's also shown us that sometimes the most unfortunate situations can lead to positive change." She turned back to Marcus. "Now shall we wrap up this beautiful bag for your mother? I think she's going to love it even more when she hears the whole story." Marcus nodded, finally letting the tears he'd been holding back fall. But now they were tears of joy and triumph rather than humiliation. The other customers began to applaud, and even some of the store employees who had been watching from a distance joined in. As Sarah led Marcus to the counter to complete his purchase, it was clear to everyone present that they had witnessed not just the end of one person's discriminatory behavior, but the beginning of something much more significant for both Marcus and Elite Luxe. The next hour in Elite Luxe transformed the store's atmosphere completely. Sarah personally helped Marcus select the perfect gift wrapping for his mother's bag, a gorgeous pearl white paper with golden ribbons. As she carefully wrapped the package, she spoke to Marcus about his future, genuinely interested in his goals and dreams. "So, besides being an excellent tutor, what are your plans for the future?" Sarah asked, delicately creasing the wrapping paper's corners. Marcus's eyes sparkled as he responded, his earlier distress replaced by excitement. "I want to study business management in college," he said confidently. "I've been learning about entrepreneurship in my school's business club. Actually, that's partly why I started tutoring, to understand what it's like to run my own small business." The other customers who had stayed to witness everything hadn't left. Instead, they gathered around, adding their own words of encouragement. The elderly gentleman in the tailored suit, who had earlier offered to buy the bag, turned out to be a retired business professor from Columbia University. "Young man," he said, handing Marcus his business card, "when you're ready to apply for college, contact me. I still have some connections in the business school." Marcus accepted the card with trembling hands, overwhelmed by how the worst moment of his life had turned into something so positive. Meanwhile, Sarah was making calls on her cell phone, speaking rapidly to corporate headquarters. The videos of the incident had already started circulating on social media, with thousands of shares and comments. But instead of trying to bury the story, Sarah was determined to turn it into a catalyst for change. "Yes, sir," she spoke into her phone. "I believe Marcus would be perfect to help develop our new diversity training program. His experience today, combined with his maturity and articulation, could help prevent similar incidents across all our stores." As she finished her call, Sarah turned to Marcus with another surprise. "Our CEO would like to meet with you next week. We're developing a new initiative to make our stores more inclusive, and we'd like your input. Your story, Marcus, could help transform our entire company culture." The middle-aged woman with expensive jewelry, who had defended Marcus earlier, stepped forward. "I've been shopping here for years," she announced, "but I've never been prouder to be a customer than today." This is how you handle a crisis, by turning it into an opportunity for real change. Conway had already left the building, escorted out by security, his store keys and badge confiscated. Frank, the older security guard who had shown hesitation earlier, approached Marcus with sincere regret in his eyes. "I'm sorry I was part of this," he said quietly. "You've taught me a valuable lesson today about not just following orders, but standing up for what's right." Marcus shook his hand, showing a maturity far beyond his 14 years. Sarah finished wrapping the bag and handed it to Marcus with a warm smile. "Your mother raised an extraordinary young man," she said. "When you give her this bag, tell her it comes with a lifetime warranty and a standing invitation for both of you to shop here anytime." As Marcus carefully took the wrapped package, his phone buzzed continuously with notifications. The videos of the incident had gone viral, with news stations already requesting interviews. But Marcus wasn't thinking about fame or attention. He was thinking about his mother's face when she would open her gift, and how proud she would be, not just of the beautiful bag, but of how her son had handled himself in a difficult situation. 1 month later, Marcus walked into Elite Luxe again, but this time everything was different. The new store manager, a friendly woman named Lisa Martinez, greeted him with a warm smile. "Welcome back, Marcus. How did the presentation at corporate go yesterday?" The store had undergone more than just a management change. The walls now displayed diverse fashion photography, and the staff reflected a rainbow of backgrounds. Marcus's story had indeed become a turning point for the company, spreading far beyond that one dramatic day. The presentation went amazing. Marcus beamed, adjusting his new blazer, a gift from the CEO after his speech. They're implementing the training program in all their stores nationwide. And guess what? Mom's story about carrying her Elite Luxe bag during her hospital shifts has inspired a new campaign called Real People, Real Luxury. His mother had become something of a celebrity at the hospital, not just for her designer bag, but for the story behind it. Her coworkers had shared the viral video thousands of times, and patients often recognize her as that brave boy's mother. She wore her bag proudly every day, telling anyone who asked about her son's determination and dignity. A young black teenager walked into the store, looking as nervous as Marcus had that first day. Without hesitation, Marcus approached him. "Can I help you find anything?" The boy's relief was visible. Seeing someone who looked like him in this luxury space made all the difference. Sarah Chen, who happened to be visiting the store that day, watched the interaction with satisfaction. The corporate internship program she'd started with Marcus had already expanded to 20 stores, giving opportunities to diverse young people interested in luxury retail careers. "Your mother must be so proud," Sarah said, joining Marcus after he'd helped the young customer find a wallet for his father's birthday. "How's she enjoying being on our customer advisory board?" Marcus grinned. His mother now attended monthly meetings with elite luxe executives, providing valuable perspective on making luxury retail more inclusive. Her insights as a working nurse have proven invaluable to the company's new direction. "She loves it," Marcus replied, though she says some of her patients recognize her from the company's new advertisement campaign and keep asking for her autograph. They both laughed, remembering how the simple act of buying a birthday gift had snowballed into such meaningful change. The store's customer base had grown more diverse too. People who had previously felt intimidated by luxury shopping now entered with confidence, knowing they would be treated with respect. Sales had actually increased since the incident, proving that inclusivity was not just morally right, but good for business. Conway, the former manager, had become a case study in what not to do in retail. Business schools now use the viral video in their ethics classes, teaching future managers about the importance of addressing bias and treating all customers with dignity. As Marcus prepared to leave for his tutoring session, which he still maintained despite his new role at Elite Luxe, he paused by the display where that first black leather bag had been. In its place was a new collection named the Marcus Collection, featuring professional bags designed for working people like his mother. "You know," Sarah said, following his gaze, "sometimes the worst moments in our lives become the catalyst for the best changes. You didn't just buy a bag that day, Marcus. You helped change an entire industry's perspective." Marcus nodded, touching his Elite Luxe employee badge proudly. His mother had always taught him to hold his head high and believe in himself, but none of them could have imagined how powerfully that lesson would play out. As he walked out of the store, several customers smiled and nodded in recognition, not because of the viral video anymore, but because he had become a familiar, respected presence in a place that once tried to throw him out. The story of the boy who was kicked out of a luxury store had become the story of how one brave teenager helped transform a company's culture, proving that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making things better for everyone who comes after you.